the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberty or democratic process. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizen can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
And with that, we're back again. Hey there, I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet. It's Monday, October 1st, 2012, only 1 month away from Halloween. Are you ready, kiddies?
I'm getting ready. I'm getting my costume together. I am going to dress as a corrupt, oil-serving executive bureaucrat who's bitter and angry about the entire Canadian public. You know who I'm going dressed as?
That would be Herr Harper.
I'm going as our dictatorious leader. I'm going as a Decepticon. This is Radio Free Canada. Hi there. We are going to bring you the news. We've gotten rid of all the Justin Bieber. We've gotten rid of every mention of royalty. And we've siphoned through thousands of news articles to bring you what's really important. This is Radio Free Canada, the legal portion of the program. Everything that you're about to hear is our opinion and only our opinion.
And whatever we say is protected under Section 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Of course, we're going to be bringing you media as protected underneath international fair usage copyright law. And as usual, we warn you, this is not in the box thinking. If you're in the box kind of person, go back to the box. This is out there. This is innovation. If you're one of those people who believes that Walmart should continue profiting from Chinese slave labor,
or that banks should continue not paying taxes.
Yes, if you think that CHBC is the news or
McDonald's is a restaurant,
then stop listening now. Please stop listening. Don't get on our Facebook wall and say that we suck. We realize that you think that we suck. We don't. This is a conscious revolution. People are waking up all around the world right now to GMOs, smart meters, the way oil is running us into the ground. We're waking up too, and we've got a challenge to City Hall right now. We've delivered some paper to them. They're ignoring it, but we're not going to let it go away. This is the way Radio Free Canada works, and we got an awesome show. The fastest 2 hours to talk radio. What do we got coming up, brother?
Well, we got the reaction to our dear leader at the UN.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, diplomacy out the door. We're Canadians. We believe in it, though. They don't. We're also going to be talking about Mark Fiore making us smile once again. A couple of really good clips.
And we've got Bibi making an idiot of himself at the UN. That's Mr. Netanyahu.
Yes, and we are going to be shaking our fist at Monday because it's Monday and I'm shaking my fist. You know, everything that can go wrong usually does. We were at the GMO rally on the weekend. And, you know, the news shows up early and then the crowd shows up. I was not impressed with that.
Well, they got to work on their timing a little bit better. But I guess they don't have those sharp-honed instincts that the news people used to have.
Once again, we saw some reporters working for the local establishment asking questions about GMO when they should have been doing some research. We've got the inside information for you, and we're going to recap what happened on the weekend at the anti-Apple GMO rally, hosted by True Food Foundation and Heidi Osterman on the weekend. While we've got a chance, though, I need a reason to smile. It's Monday. I'm grabbing coffee. Here's a reason.
Stephen Harper likes to remind us that he got elected by promising to cut government spending. And now it turns out, boy, is he serious. How serious? He's gone out and hired some guys from Bay Street in Toronto to tell him how to do it. And boy, is it a bargain. The Harper government is paying these guys $90,000 a day for 8 months. It works out to be about $20 million. Now, there's a few ways you can look at this. Some people may say, this is an egregious waste of taxpayers' money, but not me. But then again, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I prefer to look at this as a teaching moment, you know, for the kids. Did you know the concept of irony is introduced in Canadian schools at about grade 8? And many teachers say it is a difficult concept for the children to grasp. Not anymore, thanks to Mr. Harper, because the idea of spending $90,000 a day to get tips on how not to spend money, that is the new textbook definition of irony. A 5-year-old will understand irony after this. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand sometimes you have to pay the big bucks for an expert. Last month, I hired a plumber to fix my toilet because I don't know how to do that. The difference is I didn't run around the country telling everyone that I was the only guy in Canada who could fix the toilet, which is what Harper did. And now he's had to go out and hire these consultants who have no experience balancing this country's books to tell him how to do it. Hey, Steve, I've got an idea. Why don't you give Paul Martin a call? He's got experience. I mean, I admit, he was pretty loopy when it came to being prime minister, but as a finance minister, he knocked it out of the park. Or better yet, why don't you call the last conservative finance minister who left the country's books in better shape than when he found them? Oh, right. That would be Sir Samuel Tilley, who died in 1896. Come on, Steve. Save us all $20 million. Give Paul a call.
That's the way you start the show. It's Rick Mercer to start things off. Welcome to the awesome revolution that's going on. People are abandoning greed and grabbing logic. Of course, the conservative government isn't, and they got their hands caught in the cookie jar. Rona Ambrose rose to the top of Facebook personality stardom because, of course, she voted against logic.
Yes, well, isn't she, what was her position again?
Yes, she, what's that, Rona Ambrose?
Yeah.
Ministry of Women?
Something like that. Women's rights? I don't know. I can't remember what her position is. She's one of those cabinet ministers who I don't know.
Yeah, you know, you just got to realize Harper's in control. He's a dictator. We need to do something about this. But we are doing something about it. It's called municipal sustainability. We're going to talk about that and 37 other things. Everything from the Vatican to the UN to Tories in trouble to CSIS to the UK and a nuclear duck. That's all coming up in the next 2 hours. So make sure you stick around. For those of you in the network, we're going to take a quick 2 minutes for you so you can go off and pay some bills. But you know, there is hope. Activism is winning everywhere. They're shutting down Spain. They're still shutting down Greece. And Iceland is throwing bankers into jail.
I love that part.
We're going to be right back. Hang on. Let's play something corporate radio isn't allowed to do. The snap, crackle, and pop of real vinyl. Right here, this is Radio Free Canada. Right there from the Eagles in the Vinyl Vault. We're going to start up a music show right here in Radio Free Canada and bring you the real news because there are cures for cancer. There are alternatives to oil. It's just major news that's not covering it. So we will.
Yeah, well, they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to change the status quo. They want things to continue on as they are.
It's kind of amusing because they're so obvious and sucking up to those advertisers. We don't have that problem around here. And, of course, we do want you to support us. Remember, support independent media no matter where it is because it's telling the truth like major news won't. The major story over the weekend, of course, Stephen Harper's approval rating.
It seems to be slipping a bit, even amongst conservatives.
Even conservatives are, it's like the Christy Clark government, right? They're jumping ship. Conservatives are saying, hey, man, this guy is just a dictator. Christy Clark right here in the BC politics era, she's got people leaving her in droves. Oh, my gosh. But we're going to cover more about that on Friday's show right here. We were mocking Christy Clark abjectly on Friday. That was kind of fun.
That was fun.
I kind of enjoyed
I wasn't
that.
quite done with her, though. We got more spanking of Christy coming up.
Yeah, I know, and she doesn't even deserve a good one. What we're talking about here, we've got some awesome stories coming up. We're going to be talking about the GMO rally that we went to, and we did some interviews on the weekend. And we're also going to be talking about smart meters. Thursday, major show coming up in the Rotary Arts Center right here in Kelowna. It's going to be talking about smart meters, little cell phones attached to your car, attached to your house that broadcast all the time.
And that's not information I think the government needs.
No, this is not information that the government needs. What information do we need, though? Well, we want to bring people up to speed on what people think about our Prime Minister.
And here's what Mr. Angus has to say.
The Speaker survey says more and more Canadians are turning away from this Prime Minister and his party. It's united people across the country in opposition to his leadership in his wrong direction. Well, it's not hard to figure out why. Let's look at last week's misleading conservative carbon farce. It was the Prime Minister himself who led the spin game. Just like their attack on the environment, just like their attack on senior citizens, just like their attack on the integrity of the Canadian electoral system. This is a government that believes the voters are fools. But Mr. Speaker, just because Canadians are reasonable doesn't mean they're pushovers. They remember the corruption of the old Mulroney Conservatives. But when they look at this guy, it's much worse. It's like the ugly spawn of Richard Nixon. No wonder Canadians are fed up. No wonder they want a party of integrity. That's why they support the New Democratic Party of Canada.
The ugly spawn.
Yes, the ugly spawn of Richard Nixon. That was awesome right here. But, okay, so who was that?
That was Charlie Angus, the NDP MP from Timmins, Ontario.
Yeah, that's, hitting it right on the money there. Nobody has sense or any confidence in this guy whatsoever. Closing down the Pearson Peace Center, things like that, or Peace Institute, things like that going on. And, of course, we've got the word Anawapasket.
Yes.
Which, of course, was ignored. And we're going into winter again. We still have 300,000 homeless. Boy, you don't see any dramatic music or any focus on that with major news.
Well, don't you know Mr. Harper has much more important things to do?
Oh, yes.
Go to New York and ignore the UN.
Oh, yeah. This is awesome. Check this out. Look, make up your own mind on our imperious leader. Just listen to this. Check it out.
Prime Minister Stephen Harper is in New York City tonight. He's there to accept an award for global statesmanship. This evening that happens, but what he it's what he didn't do earlier today that's drawing some condemnation. He rejected a chance to speak at the UN General Assembly. As Jacques Bourbeau reports from the United Nations, many don't think that decision was very statesmanlike. Jacques?
Donna, world leaders have been coming to New York all week to speak to the UN General Assembly. Prime Minister Stephen Harper is also in New York, but speaking to the UN is not on his agenda. Stephen Harper did go to the UN, but it was a brief visit to meet the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. Harper also met with Haiti's president, but the event that brought him to New York takes place tonight at the Waldorf Astoria, where he's receiving a Statesman of the Year award from a New York foundation. But it's where Harper isn't going that has his critics riled. All week, world leaders have spoken to the UN General Assembly, but Harper, even though he was just steps away from the podium, won't be among them.
Our Prime Minister is not showing up at the United Nations, which means that it sends a message that really we don't think it's important.
Whatever his reasons for not speaking to the UN, Harper wasn't sharing them today.
Prime Minister, your critics are wondering why, since you're here at the UN, you're not speaking to the General Assembly.
I think this will go down as as not just a snub, but a missed opportunity.
A former senior Canadian diplomat says there's a cost to Harper's indifference.
People will eventually notice that we're on the sidelines, and we will just be consulted less. We will just be taken for granted if we don't play an active part at the UN.
Prime Minister Harper has one more item on his New York itinerary. Tomorrow morning he meets with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The two leaders expected to discuss the threat posed by Iran's nuclear program and whether the time has come to stop it. Donna?
Jacques Bourbeau at the UN tonight.
And there's our imperious leader embarrassing us once again on the world stage.
You know, when they closed off the diplomacy to Iran, it really showed us that the conservative values are not Canadian values, just simply because they ended diplomacy with a country that's never invaded somebody else. They've never, they haven't. As a matter of fact, there are Jewish settlements that are well protected within Iran right now that they will not talk about in major media.
But don't you know they're a sponsor of state terrorism?
Yeah, and they're against everything Jewish. And, of course, Jews are way more important than, Palestinians, for instance.
It seems that way.
And the outrageous human rights abuses carried on by the government within Israel is absolutely protested against by Israeli citizens themselves.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, by Jews who are living in New York are protesting this guy getting into the UN and drawing a ridiculous cartoon about how dangerous it is with Iran. I mean, talking about losing credibility from anybody who has any logic.
That's right, because Bibi is really lost it, I think.
It's funny because you've got that clip. We're going to play it later on. And we're also going to be talking about the nuclear duck in a little bit. Before we got to take a break, I just want to get the overseas version of Harper in action. Okay?
Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper has decided not to speak at the UN General Assembly. Instead, he attended a private ceremony where he received an award by a Jewish-sponsored organization. Former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger handed the Appeal of Conscience Foundation Award to the Canadian Prime Minister. Now, Harper used the event to criticize the United Nations. He accused the UN members of using the world body as a forum to single out Israel. The opposition party in Canada, said Harper's decision to avoid the UN General Assembly was, quote, absolutely ridiculous. They say it sends the message that Ottawa does not care about the UN. Many in Canada are extremely worried about the Prime Minister's conservative policies. Harper is also accused of locking his government behind a wall of secrecy, defunding democratic institutions, and giving away Canada's sovereignty to Britain and Israel. Well, in Canada, many are saying that the award given to Stephen Harper for being a champion of human rights and democracy is, quote, a sad joke. Many in Canada accuse the government of selling off its sovereignty and cracking down on democratic institutions, as we've just told you. Earlier, we were joined by our correspondent Joshua Blakeney in Calgary. Let's hear what he had to say.
So everybody who can read and use the internet understands that Israel is a periodic violator of human rights. And so, of course, someone who whitewashes those crimes is going to ingratiate themselves with the Zionist regime. And that appears to be what Prime Minister Stephen Harper has been doing. And for doing so, he's received an award. I mean, some would say it's almost Kafkaesque that you have someone like Henry Kissinger, who throughout the Cold War participated in many violations of human rights in Vietnam, in Chile with the coup d'etat. Christopher Hitchens wrote a whole book on it, indicting Henry Kissinger for his war crimes, that he should be handing an award to Prime Minister Harper for human rights, freedom and democracy is perhaps appropriate, seeing as he himself opposed all those pinnacles throughout his career as a statesman. So Canadians, I think, are upset with the fact that Canada, under the Harper regime, I won't call it a government because, of course, the 2011 election is disputed. Canada, under the Harper regime, has shifted from being a country that used to engage in multilateral negotiations, tried to embrace international institutions, to one that supports this kind of Judeo-Christian unilateralism, one that supports basically Israel's war on terror.
And once again, we have to go to Press TV to get the real story of what's going on. And it's as if the local guys, the local news editors, don't have the internet. They can't get the other point of view, which is sadly missing in major media right now.
Well, it just reeks of so much irony when he's getting this award from Kissinger, a war criminal.
Yeah, straight out. That's the indictment of Kissinger. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, it's the Trials of Henry Kissinger by Christopher Hitchens.
Okay, so we got to check that out. But you use your brain, question this, and find out why they're supporting such an outrageous regime, a warmongering regime in Israel right now, banging the drums and doing the best they can to get us involved with World War III. We don't support it. You know who had some awesome posts about that? Lynn Nichols from WTPN. We're looking at that over the weekend, and they're really starting to look at both sides of the story. In the United States, why do we have to pay to be the world's policeman? Why do we put up with Israel? Why do we only take one point of view?
And if they really want to have a firm foreign policy with Israel, why don't they say back off on the Palestinians or you lose our military funding? Now that's negotiating.
That's creating peace as opposed to supporting war. But they refuse to back up things. The Americans refuse to back up things like isolating small arms, getting rid of nuclear weapons. I mean, if you want to get taken that you are a credible imposer of civilization, you would disarm. Well, that would only be logical, though.
Yeah.
We got a big shout out. Hey, big shout out to Michael Alk. Did you see the music on the Facebook wall this morning?
No, I wasn't online this morning.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael, for bringing us some great music, some great suggestions. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break. We're going to be right back with the fastest 2 hours. A big shout out to our friends, Bill Nietzsche and all of the boys right there on our Facebook wall. Join us. The revolution is continuing.
Demand democracy.
Right there from Europe. It's the final countdown. Of course, we don't think it is because activism is working around the world. We're at a great rally with Heidi Osterman and the True Food Foundation on the weekend, seeing how real democracy works. You know, and democracy does work when you hold your politicians accountable. Apparently, the Americans can't figure that one out, though.
Well, they haven't done that for years, but we're out there demanding democracy.
Yeah, Demand Democracy is our municipal sustainability movement right here at Radio Free Canada. We just went in there last week. We're getting a video together to explain what we're doing. And we submitted a letter and a newsletter to all of our councillors and our mayor Haven't heard a thing back.
Well, they probably are too busy to, read that.
Yeah, they're so busy, really. We know what they're doing when they're in there. We realize that when they ignore the common citizen and their concerns, they're just making sure that democracy loses credibility. And we're going to be focusing on that. But what we're focusing on is, hey, you don't have a chance to vote on what's important.
Yeah, like closing an embassy in Tehran and then combining embassies with the Commonwealth.
The combining of embassies thing. Would you vote to combine our embassies? Did you get any information on our trade deals? Did you get any information on why they're limiting the environmental debate on power supply programs?
Are you kidding? That's not for Canadians to think about.
Yeah, they don't want people to be informed, and they don't want people to vote on the actual decisions, and that's why we're talking about demanding democracy. The one thing that came up on our radar, combining embassies. I mean, I wouldn't vote for this, but, a lot of people hyped it right out of proportion. We got the story from CBC.
Well, Harper is a monarchist.
Yeah, I know.
News this day, a major announcement is coming out of Ottawa today. Details of a deal that would see Canada and Britain share space in several diplomatic missions around the world. It's a plan to give each nation a larger reach at a smaller price, but critics warn it could weaken Canada's identity. Margot McDermott's going to be on that story in Ottawa today, here to set it up. What do we know so far about this Canada-UK deal, Margot?
Heather, what we do know is that British Foreign Secretary William Hague will be in Ottawa today to sign this agreement. And essentially, they're going to share a series of embassies around the world with Canada and vice versa. So Britain is trying to sort of expand its reach around the world, and it's looking to its Commonwealth countries to help it out, in particular Canada. And the idea is that if Canada has an embassy in a remote part of the world and the UK doesn't, that they'll share consular services in that embassy and vice versa. Now, Britain's Foreign Office is actually saying that they have a lot in common with Commonwealth countries like Canada. And here's a quote saying that they'll simply give them a bigger reach abroad for businesses and for people for less costs. And there are reports today it's not just going to be a sharing of real estate, but the two countries could actually work together for things like emergencies, like revolutions and natural disasters. So there would be sort of support there as well.
What's the impetus for this sharing, Margot? What's the idea behind it?
Well, there certainly is a cost factor. Both countries, the foreign services are being cut back. They're losing some budget. So certainly it would help both countries to have this kind of agreement to save money. But there are also reports in Britain that the UK is actually sort of pushing back against the EU, because the EU is opening a series of its own embassies or offices around the world. And Britain is actually worried that it's kind of undermine its identity as a major foreign power. So it's looking to sort of expand its reach, its profile, by using embassies like Canada's. However, not everyone thinks this is such a great idea. People who are experts in foreign affairs say, in fact, that the two countries don't actually share common foreign policies. Give the Iraq War, for example, Canada didn't go into Iraq and Britain did. And so some people are warning that, in fact, Canada could kind of lose its identity with this agreement. Here's international affairs expert Finn Hampson.
We're opening up new missions in India and other emerging markets. You're selling Canada. And as soon as you put the Queen and a British flag there, you're blurring that identity.
Heather, and if this kind of sounds familiar for travelers, in fact it is. Canada has a similar deal with Australia and has had it since the late 1980s, where we share consular services with them in places around the world. So if you're a Canadian in trouble, there's no Canadian embassy, you can go to the Australian embassy and they can help you. So it's actually a fairly common arrangement, and Canada already does do that in some cases with the UK already, but not with such fanfare. But nonetheless, William Hague will be in Ottawa today to sign the agreement, and we'll be able to ask him some questions around 3:30 Eastern Time.
We'll definitely be having coverage of that right here on CBC News Network. Thanks so much, Margot McDermott.
Yeah, and then, okay, CBC, I'm sorry, was that CBC or CTV?
CBC.
Oh, there you go. Thanks, brother. Okay, so there you've got the analysis then, and I didn't realize that the EU was opening up embassies. The EU. opening up embassies.
Are they an international presence? I mean, as far as diplomacy goes?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of sounds like the EU is starting to do negotiations. Like an embassy is usually there to represent the concerns or the protection of citizens. I don't know. I guess we got to take a look into this because I didn't know about it.
Maybe they'll have an office wherever there's a central bank.
Well, here's your EU office, and then connected to it is the IMF. Yeah. Yes, just another commercial bank making money up out of nowhere. Wait a second. We didn't mock that yet. That people don't know that banks make money. The Royal Bank makes money out of nowhere. We should talk about that in the next hour, though. Okay? I mean, just slipping that in because in case the bankers weren't, thought I'd forgotten for a second, right?
Got to keep the bankers on their toes.
We want you to challenge us. We're not going to make ourselves any commercials and say, trust us. Go and check out our facts. We know what we're talking about is a fact, but we know that you should question us and go and check it out. Find out if it's true. CSIS on the radar. And Robert, you bring us this story. This is awesome. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a chance to take a look at it on Friday's show. We promised to get it in there. Okay.
I'm David Tompkins. Welcome to NTD News. The federal government faced questions today about the takeover bid for a Calgary-based energy company. The opposition is demanding that more information be made public.
So we'll now proceed then to the preferred shareholder vote.
Nixon's shareholders have voted to accept to a $15 billion deal that would see the company taking over by CNOOC, the Chinese-owned energy giant. But the final decision is up to the Harper government, and the opposition has lots of questions.
Will anyone on that side of the House stand up and acknowledge that Canadians have real and legitimate concerns about the purchase of Nixon by CNOOC?
John Baird says any concerns about the takeover will be considered.
There's a process set out in legislation. We're certainly following that. There are elements to ensure that our national security is protected.
Yesterday's vote came on the same day as a report by Canada's spy agency CSIS that looks at foreign investment. In its annual report, CSIS concludes that while most foreign investment in Canada is open and transparent, there are deals that can represent a threat to Canadian security. Certain state-owned enterprises and private firms with close ties to their home governments have pursued OPEC agendas or received clandestine intelligence support for their pursuit here. Fingers were pointed at China last year when the computer systems in several key government departments were hacked and traced back to computer servers in China.
It should be a significant wake-up call to Canadians because it was, as it appears to be in the media reporting, to have been an all-out frontal assault.
Baird was pressed to provide details of the Nixon-CNOOC proposal.
The entire deal was put to shareholders.
Poland says Canadians want much more than shareholder details.
I can't find another example of another country that would offer up its national treasures so easily without any concern at all.
There might be security risks and security issues, and that's why it's all the more important for the government to disclose what's in this deal.
The government is expected to make its decision later this fall, and critics say Canadians deserve to know more details before that happens.
I don't know what clip to choose out of that.
The mind boggles.
Okay, we couldn't imagine another country giving up its prized possessions faster, easier, or cheaper. Okay? I mean, they're signing all of these deals, and they're getting rid of our raw resources and our raw technologies. Just carte blanche. Just boom. Let's just do it. It's a big company. Let's do it.
But don't we have a firm stand on human rights? And isn't China a constant violator of it?
Well, don't bring that up. They got money.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on. They've got money. So don't bring up the fact that it's Chinese slave labor that's driving our economy into the ground.
But didn't Harper just accept an award for a champion of human rights from the Zionist state of Israel?
Oh, come on. I mean, come on. Obama won the Peace Prize, okay?
Yeah, okay.
You know, Harper wins the Zionist award.
I forgot my irony meter was a little bit off.
Well, let's take a chance. Hey, let's smile here because we've got a really good smile. Sticking to the international stage because we have to. I'm glad you found this, brother. Let's let it run.
Ladies and gentlemen, if it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, then what is it? What is it? That's right. it's a duck. But this duck is a nuclear duck.
I've never been so humiliated in all my life.
That's right, that's right, that's right, nuclear duck. That's right, that's right, that's right.
Quack, quack.
That's right, that's right, that's right, nuclear duck. That's right, that's right, that's right. Ladies and gentlemen, what is it?
Shoot the duck! Shoot the duck!
What is it?
Shoot me! Go on!
What is it?
Let's go over it once more.
If it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, that's right, it's a duck.
Why, everybody knows it's really duck season.
But this duck is a nuclear duck. That's right, that's right, that's right, nuclear duck. That's right, that's right, that's right.
Quack, quack.
That's right, that's right, that's right, nuclear duck. That's right, that's right, that's right. And it's time the world started calling a duck a duck.
That was Yippee in action.
Oh, man, I am so happy to work around here sometimes just because it makes me very happy to work around here. Thanks to all of our friends for pointing us in the right direction on the internet, making sure that we're up to date on what's going on around the world. We're going to be touching base with some of our friends who did some awesome posts on the weekend on Radio Free Canada's Facebook wall. And make sure you get a hold of us at Darren. I am Darren Howard at Darren's Place at hotmail.com. Robert Nesbitt, we're trying to get you on the CIA watch list. We're trying hard.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll keep poking the bear, you know.
Okay, so for our friends at Homeland Security and from CSIS who are writing down every blasted word we're saying, we would like to say the words bomb parts.
Oh, I was going to say Al-Qaeda.
Al-Qaeda. Ooh, organize. Independent media. Apparently, independent media is a terrorist organization now, according to the FBI.
Well, apparently if you don't have a Facebook account, you can be considered a terrorist.
Oh, man. Okay. You know what? We have to take a break. We do. We apologize. We got some awesome stories coming. What do we got coming up next, brother?
Oh, we should talk about the abortion debate that has found its way back into our parliament.
Oh, yes. Rona, you're my favorite woman. Okay, we'll be right back. Rona Ambrose on the shooting line.
Well, I was born an original sinner. I was born from original sin. And if I had $1 bill for all the things I've done, there'd be a mountain of money piled up to my chin. Told me good, my mother told me strong. She said be true to yourself and you can't go wrong. But there's just one thing that you must understand. You can fool with your brother, but don't mess with a missionary man. 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 Missionary man, he's got God on his side. He's got the saints and apostles backing up from behind. Black-eyed looks from those Bible books. He's a man with a mission, got a serious mind. There was a woman in the jungle and a monkey on a tree. The missionary man, he was following me. He said, stop what you're doing, get down upon your knees. I have a message for you that you better believe.
Music from the Eurythmics as we stick to the E's today as an E! Harper's in Parliament. Ah, yes, be afraid, be very afraid. And if you're looking for something to dress up in this Halloween, remember, dress as a dictator. Dress as Stephen Harper. You'll make more friends. Well, no.
No,
You'll be
you
more popular with it.
No.
No. You might get laid. No. Okay. At any rate, if you are, if you want babe repellent, make sure you dress as Stephen Harper. If you want to be popular, have lots of friends, and rub elbows with celebrities, hang around with Radio Free Canada. I am Darren Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
And if you listen to Radio Free Canada, you will probably lose weight while you do it. Remember, results may vary, but stick with us. It might work. We're talking about all kinds of stuff that Major News is just too scared, too afraid to cover. And abortion is one of those issues where you hear the politically correct version of abortion come out everywhere.
I can't believe this is still being debated.
It is childish, and actually it's one of those philosophical false flags, okay? It's one of those operations to get everyone riled up on some medieval argument like the world is only 4,000 years old. Okay, I know thinking Christians who look and just go, you believe what? I mean, you really don't believe that. And I always challenge the grandparents in the church pews. I say, Grandpa, you know that women are supposed to obey. And Grandma looks and goes, I mean, that happens in the church pews. But it happened in Parliament. Rona Ambrose, Minister of the Status of Women. Oh, my goodness. I mean, blow me away. What happened was they tried to re-raise the abortion debate.
Yes, another Christian right-to-lifer. I guess that's what we call them.
I don't know.
A conservative.
We have other words for it. But a little bit of background. You make up your mind.
The Prime Minister has made it clear he doesn't want to reopen the abortion debate in Canada. But today, one of his most trusted senior cabinet ministers broke ranks with his boss on the issue. Jason Kenney said he will vote in favor of a controversial motion on abortion. Jacques Bourbeau, our parliamentary bureau chief, joins us with all the details. Jacques?
Well, Donna, this morning, Jason Kenney was holding a news conference about new legislation to deport foreign criminals. When he was asked whether he would support Conservative backbencher Stephen Woodworth's motion to have Parliament study when a fetus becomes a human being. And in French, Kenney said, I have said I will vote in favor of the motion, and I respect the points of view of all ministers and MPs. I think we can have a respectful debate on the question. Now, this is significant because Kenney is the first prominent Conservative to say he'll support the motion, but really it's not a surprise because keep in mind he used to be the leader of the Parliamentary Pro-Life Caucus.
Yeah, but Jacques, when a heavy hitter like Jason Kenney votes in favor of a controversial motion like this, what message does it send?
Well, it does send a strong message. Keep in mind he's a very powerful cabinet minister. He is also touted as a future conservative leadership contender. And I have to tell you, pro-life websites were ecstatic when they heard the news that Kenney was going to support this motion. But of course, the critical question is whether this motion is going to pass. Stephen Woodworth himself says it's unlikely. The Prime Minister says he won't vote for the motion. I also thought it was interesting that we asked several cabinet ministers when they're walking into question period whether they would support the motion. Most of them walked on by. They were reluctant to answer the question, which indicates to me that they're reluctant to join Jason Kenney and say that they support this motion.
Jacques, critics say this is part of a broader agenda to push the abortion debate in through the back door. Is there anything to that?
Well, certainly that's the fear of those who support a woman's right to choose. But so far, the Harper government has avoided any kind of pro-life legislation. But you can be sure that pro-life MPs are going to be watching the results of this vote very carefully, looking for any sign of support. And if they see a significant amount of support, you can be sure they're going to try to raise this issue again in the House of Commons.
Okay, Jacques in Ottawa, thanks.
And the hits just keep on coming.
It's like they make our job way too easy. Walter Gray, our local city hall, sticking their foot in all the way up to the knee with our pro-life week right here in Kelowna. I mean, talking about taking the minority fascist point of view. Don't agree with them. Just don't. Okay?
No.
I'm one of those people. I've got firm spiritual beliefs, and I don't agree with taking away someone's choice just because I want to ram my opinion down their throat.
Why is this noise even occurring in the House of Commons? I mean, don't we have more important stuff to discuss?
Yeah, there's way more important. There's 300,000 homeless. There's 1,500 homeless people here locally, and they involve themselves with a nonsensical debate, making sure that they get headlines and they appeal to the fascist few. Well, we have an opinion about that. Let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. And we're standing up there, and we're there to back up anybody who's doing the debate. We've got some video of a little protest rally that went on in City Hall. That's going to come up on ours. But, of course, let's bring media that mocks them outright.
The female anatomy. Alluring, definitely. But how much do we really know about this hidden menace? For some time now, we've accepted the existence of the uterus, but much like alternating current and Soviet leader Khrushchev, its intentions remain unclear. One thing seems certain. It has a primitive mind of its own. And it's on the move, into the very halls of government. Already, uteri occupy nearly 1/4 of the seats of Parliament. Imagine the danger were it to exercise free will. Thankfully, vigilant parliamentarian Stephen Woodworth is on the case. Dr. Woodworth wants to reopen the uterus file and probe the depths of its scientific mystery. Who'd be on the job? Why, some of our top political minds, of course. Veterans one and all of the fight against the intrusive long-form census and the privacy-invading long gun registry. Now ready to discover its secrets in the name of science. Just imagine the decisions that could come from their findings. New definitions, new laws, and a new era of safety from the uterine menace. So soldier on, brave Stephen Woodworth. We'll all sleep better knowing you're taking Canada forward.
I feel safer already.
Oh, so do I.
I do. I mean, we need protection from these women parts that are too squeamish to talk about. It is. It's vitally important. I'm so glad that they're medieval. It just makes our job so much easier, right? I mean, you know, women shouldn't enjoy orgasms. Oh, my gosh, that's a bad thing,
Oh,
right?
that's a bad thing.
I
They
mean,
shouldn't have a
bad.
choice in how they, run their families.
Yeah, they shouldn't have any. People shouldn't have choice. You should be able to ram your opinion down anybody's throat because you're right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you have God on
anyway.
your side.
God on your side? Hey, speaking of God and Stephen Harper.
Prime Minister Stephen Harper is a self-proclaimed evangelical or born-again Christian, and many members of his conservative government hold the same devout beliefs. Despite my own atheistic views and belief that the Conservatives are slowly turning Canada into the United States, where religious fundamentalism plays a large role in politics and social issues, that is not the point of this video. I am also not trying to offend anyone, except for perhaps the Conservative Party. I will attempt to appeal to Harper and other Christian Canadians that cannabis should not be prohibited, using quotes from their own holy book. If Harper is truly an evangelical Christian, one who follows the Christian Bible and believes its messages to be infallible or free from error, why does he persist on perpetuating the war on cannabis, a naturally occurring plant? This is blasphemous if you take the word of the Bible as fact. Ezekiel 47:12 states, "Fruit trees of all kinds will grow on both banks of the river. Their leaves will not wither, nor will their fruit fail. Every month they will bear, because the water from the sanctuary flows to them. Their fruits will serve for food, and their leaves for healing." Revelation 22:2 says, "Through the middle of the street of the city, also on either side of the river, the tree of life with its 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit each month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations." Genesis 9:3 states, "Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you, and as I give you the green plants, I give you everything." Genesis 1:2 states, "The earth brought forth vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good." Timothy 4:1-4 says, "Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of evil, speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding abstinence from foods that God created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. For everything created by God is good, and nothing is to be rejected if it is received for thanksgiving." Exodus 30:22-25 states, "Then the Lord said to Moses, Take also for yourself the finest of spices, of flowing myrrh 500 shekels, and of fragrant cinnamon half as much, 250, and of fragrant cane 250, and of cassia 500, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, and of olive oil a hin. You shall make of these a holy anointing oil, a fragrant blend, the work of a perfumer. It shall be a holy anointing oil." This passage doesn't seem to reference cannabis at all. However, researchers, including Dr. Sula Bennett in 1936, concluded that the original passage was mistranslated and that in Hebrew, cannabosum, or fragrant cane as it is called in the King James Version, actually refers to cannabis. Of course, this and many other passages are still debated by theologians to this day. So, Mr. Harper and other members of the Conservative Party who like to claim evangelical Christian status are disobeying their own God and Scripture when destroying grow operations and imprisoning users and dealers of cannabis. Even if the last passage is disputed, one cannot dispute a phrase like, "Everything created by God is good." Would cannabis not fall into the category of being created by God? Why are Christians not concerned about the extermination of a living organism they believe God created? Canadians, religious and atheists alike, should look at the many lies and hypocrisies of Stephen Harper
it is
and his
that
conservative
prohibition
government
thing that
and
gives
hold them
so much
accountable.
money that they could
It's time
use
for
for
the
whatever
Canadian
they
government
want,
to
cruising
legalize
around in
cannabis.
cars and acting like tough guys. I'm not pointing my accusatory elbow at any RCMP or anything like this, but if we annihilated cannabis prohibition from, and legalized it, well, it would just show how little they actually do in a given day.
Yes, well, they got people to beat up,
Yeah. There's people who are down. They've got to be kicked. Come on. Make sure that you get onto the debate and start taking a look at how ridiculous cannabis prohibition is. We're taking a late break here, 2 minutes, and we're going to be right back. We got a quick talk about the Tories as we continue to mock our dictatorial leader, Mr. Stephen Harper. Welcome. It's Radio Free Canada. Welcome to the winning team. Right there from Earth, Wind, and Fire. Why? Because I accidentally played the wrong song. Yes, indeed. Something that we can do without computer control right here at Radio Free Canada.
There are no wrong songs.
There are no wrong songs, unless, of course, you're playing Lady Gaga.
Well,
and then
that is wrong. That's just wrong.
Justin Bieber. Stop what you're doing now. Just stop what you're doing. We know that the overseas, they take a look at what we're doing, and they're very honest about what's going on.
That they are.
The other side of the view is one of the reasons why we're here, and we know what? Let's talk about the law and the law courts. You be the judge.
Canada's legal system is failing to provide access to justice, or so says Canada's top judge. Beverly McLaughlin, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, voiced the criticism during a recent speech at the Canadian Bar Association's annual conference. Provincial and federal governments have made cuts to legal aid funds in recent years, emphasizing the need for economic austerity. This decision has led to criticism from legal experts who draw attention to the extortionate cost of engaging in legal disputes in Canada. Such critics suggest that justice cannot be attained unless the proper experts and resources are provided to those who find themselves criminalized.
But there's serious access to justice problems because people's rights are being violated and they don't have access to the courts.
A good illustration of the impact of cuts to legal aid came in 2009, when the government in the Canadian province of British Columbia reduced the legal aid budget from $96 million to $74 million. This compelled the BC Legal Services Society to close 5 regional offices and lose 50 members of staff.
We have to sit back and ask, look at our society, look at the inequalities in our society and say, we've got to do some serious work. And one of the big areas we have to do that, in which we have to do that work, is in the area of access to justice.
As well as defunding legal aid programs, the Harper government has embarked upon a lavish project of constructing US-style, for-profit mega-prisons, even though crime statistics suggest that crime in Canada is at an all-time low.
When we introduce a profit motive into the criminal justice system, we are, I think, removing an important pillar of a democracy, and that is that there be a legal system that is publicly funded, because it is part and parcel of the social contract. It's part and parcel of the social contract that I, as a citizen, have with my fellow citizens and indeed the government.
There have been attempts in the past to have the right to legal aid established as a constitutional right in Canada. But so far, attempts have failed to have this goal realized. This is perhaps why Canada's Chief Justice called for changes in the legal system in the surprising way that she did this week. Joshua Blakeney, Press TV, Calgary.
And that is just the first hour. Holy smokes.
So fast. Well, coming up in the next hour, we'll be talking about the fight that the Tories put up against veterans' benefits.
And we're going to be talking about
the UN.
The UN and Rhoda Ambrose. I think we're going to poke some more fun at her. It's all coming up in the fastest 2 hours, but we want you to check it out and join the debate. Legal services have been destroyed in Canada. There is no democracy unless there's justice. Justice is not just a lack of tension. We are dealing with it right here. There are solutions. Stay with us the next hour. We're going to be talking about it. I am Darren Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
This is Radio Free Canada. And with that, it's hour number 2. Welcome back. It is Radio Free Canada. Yes, indeed, your info warriors extraordinaire stepping onto the microphone for a wonderful Monday where we all need more coffee.
Ah, yes.
Okay, quickly. Everything that you're about to hear is our opinion, only our opinion. Don't take it too seriously because we sure as heck don't. Everything you're about to hear is covered under international fair usage copyright law, the media.
And everything we say is protected under Section 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms until Mr. Harper takes that away from us.
We're fighting for the unions. We're fighting for the women. We're fighting for everybody. You know, basically because somebody's got to get out there and talk about the real news. Remember, CHBC AM 1150, they're only bringing you the conservative right-wing side of things, and that's why we need major news that sounds major cool.
So if you're of a conservative mindset and think about things inside the box.
Yes, if you think that banks should continue not paying taxes.
Or making money up out of nothing, i.e. fractional reserve lending.
If you think that Walmart should continue to profit from Chinese slave labor.
Or if you think McDonald's is a restaurant.
Or CHBC is the news, then stop listening now. Please stop listening. This is activist radio. This is radio for people who know there's a better way to do things than wandering around like a credit rating. We've got real human values. Apparently they don't, and that's why we're on the air. Yes, indeed. Question what we're talking about. Because we're Radio Free Canada.
Please do. Check your own sources. Do your own research. Find these things out for yourself.
And there's one thing that we do say now openly. We do not have to put up commercials saying, trust us. And we're the most trusted news source. I mean, do you believe someone who comes up and says, trust me?
You mean like a bank? Or a corporation?
Trust me, it's good for you. Let's start things off with a smile. Let's get right into it. My favorite guy on the Canadian airwaves, Mr. Rick Mercer.
So many interesting polls in the news this week, I don't know where to start. One poll has the NDP and the Tories tied nationally. Another poll says that Canada is warming up to Stephen Harper. And another poll says that 50% of Canadians love eating quinoa every single day. Now, if you're not familiar, quinoa is the seed from the goosefoot plant, which is grown in the Andes. And I only include the definition because there's not a hope in hell that 50% of Canadians are eating quinoa every day. Look, once upon a time, the powers that be would pay experts vast amounts of money to study the entrails of sacrificed animals and predict the future. They would cut open a pigeon or a sheep, and they'd look around in there and go, oh, yeah, look at the liver. Yes, definitely, the Green Party will sweep the riding of Upper Middle Nowhere. Now, of course, we as a modern, educated, quinoa-loving nation know that studying animal entrails is worthless 100% of the time, give or take 3%, 9 times out of 10. So instead, newsrooms all across Canada, they rely on modern pollsters, and they report their predictions as the news. How's that working out? The Alberta election, the Quebec election, the destruction of the Bloc Québécois, they were all wrong. Now, of course, once upon a time, the pollsters had a pretty good track record. But this was back in the day when people sat around and listened to radio dramas, and they got all excited when the phone rang. Let's face it, the only people talking to pollsters in 2012 are shut-ins, the demented, and people like me who think it's funny to make up the wrong answers. I feel bad saying this because I'm sure pollsters are nice people, but their numbers, they don't add up. Now, I'm not saying they're sitting around studying animal entrails, but based on the results, they're spending way too much time examining parts of their own anatomy. Polls do not belong on page 1. Put them in the back where they belong, with the horoscopes and the jumbles.
Oh man, they're back again. It's Rick Mercer. I'm loving it. One of the reasons why is all of those polling companies only poll you if you have 2 credit cards, 2 mortgages, and 2 kids in college, which means you're part of the 1%, and that's the reason why these polls fail. Now, they basically fail every time.
But I do like the latest poll that says 50% of Canadians disapprove of Stephen Harper.
Huffington Post came out with that one, but actually it was on a Toronto Star or something like that. I remember a Facebook petition going around that everybody in the activist community shared the question, do you approve of Stephen Harper or do you highly disapprove? You know how we voted.
The same way 50% of Canadians polled voted.
Yes, 50% of Canadians polled. And if they actually ran that type of information on major news, we would have change. We would have an end to police brutality. We would have an end to hunger. But remember, a car accident is way more important than 1 in 5 Canadian children going hungry.
Or Justin Bieber's mom's painful past.
You know what? That floored me. That and Lady Gaga coming out with a perfume. Apparently, that was important. Okay.
Or Tom Cruise and his Life Alone. I mean, do you really care about this stuff?
We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come right back. Thanks for joining us. It's so good to work around here. It is Monday, though, so we're going to have 2 extra cups of coffee, and we're going to come back and start talking about the UN acting like a bunch of high school kids. It's Radio Free Canada.
Cries of veterans who have served in the killing fields of Rwanda, who have borne witness to the horrific genocidal terror of former Yugoslavia, who experienced the harsh, bloody reality of Afghanistan, where over 150 of Canada's finest have been sacrificed and thousands of wounded. Their voices, their cries are not being heard. Why is this government so unwilling to provide Canadian veterans the services they deserve? Why are vet caseworkers overburdened between 900 and 1,200 case files? Clients, many whom are suffering from complex war-related disabilities. Why does it still take months for veterans to receive benefits that should only take weeks? Why have the waiting times for care, treatment, and compensation not decreased? And why are Canadian veterans dying while they're waiting for services to be supported? Does this sound like a department that can sustain another further $250 million in austerity-based reductions? A department already incapable of providing adequate services to those who have suffered the consequences of war and peace. A department that surely needs more, not less.
And there's another example of why we have to start voting on what policy is for governments.
Exactly. You know, they're running all these austerity measures past us, and they're just screwing our people.
Yeah. And then you got to understand that austerity measures, of course, are only to ensure bank profits, private banks, not even like a government bank. I mean, it would make more sense if we were issuing money, you know, making money up out of nowhere for our own benefit, but this is to benefit the Royal Bank or, you know, the International Bank of Settlements.
Or the government of Canada.
Yeah, you know. But, you know, okay, so...
So they spent $750,000 fighting clawbacks to veterans' benefits.
Okay.
But they will not appeal. They did lose their appeal. They won't appeal again because advocacy worked. People called in. They wrote their MPs. And we have a message from the guys from Leave No Vet Behind who started this court case.
Right on. Go ahead.
I want to thank disabled veterans and Canadians who over the past few months have sent thousands of emails, letters, and tweets to their members of Parliament encouraging them to end the system clawback. The Government of Canada has listened to Canada's disabled veterans, and clearly they wanted to do the right thing. They are to be applauded for not appealing the federal court decision. The federal court ruling and the accepting of the ruling by the Government of Canada provides hope for Canada's disabled veterans who have been taken advantage of for far too long. So what does this decision mean for us disabled veterans? Well, we don't have a lot of detail yet. The legal team at McGuinness Cooper will soon sit down with federal representatives to finalize the decision. We hope that over the next several months, disabled veterans in the class will receive the money they deserve. When we started the class action lawsuit, we said that we would leave no veteran behind. I want to thank the Government of Canada for starting to honor that commitment and treating Canada's disabled veterans with the dignity they deserve. This has been a very difficult experience for Canada's disabled veterans, including me, and it is a relief to know that we are one step closer to being reimbursed. Please visit www.leavenovetbehind.ca to thank the Government of Canada for doing the right
So
thing.
we need to thank the government for doing the right thing.
Or, don't expect the government to do the right thing, because that would, you can't expect them to do that.
Well, the thing is, they fought that every step of the way.
$750,000 to fight veterans getting benefits. That's amazing. Okay, that you would even... But then again, once again, another excuse on why you have to demand democracy. We demand to vote on how budgets are spent, because me and you wouldn't vote for lawyers to get $750,000 to fight veterans getting benefits.
No, I'd say just give the veterans their benefits.
It's the same thing as right here in town. 1,500 homeless people. We've known this for the last decade. They've just doubled the price for, taking care of parks. To make grass where there is no grass naturally growing.
I could see if they were spending that money on food production.
But that would make sense.
Yes, that would make sense.
Okay, that's why we're doing demand democracy. That's why we're getting people. The normal people are getting involved. They're looking at us going, yeah, you do have solutions and we agree with you. So we've started hitting the streets and talking to people right in person. Get a hold of us and make sure you support what we're doing, because we do need your help too. We're not, nobody's alone.
That's right. We're not an island here.
And really good segue. People who think they're an island, people who think that they're cut off. The RCMP, I've talked about it extensively, that the RCMP feel that they're cut off from everybody and they're not, they're just not part of things going on.
They're not figuring stuff out, though. They're not learning from past experiences.
That's right.
Remember what happened with Jeff Matler when it was caught on video?
Mm-hmm.
It seems they're still not paying attention to people with cell phones.
Yeah, your police brutality update, of course. Well, check it out. Make up your own mind.
The RCMP is defending the actions of a Cold Lake constable after video surfaced showing the officer kick a man under arrest in the face.
The incident was recorded during a weekend party outside the community and has sparked outrage among those who know the man. Laurel Clark reports.
Hey, Mike. It's called a stun technique, and that is the exact effect it's had on many who have seen this video in Cold Lake.
We actually went... And oh my God, I was completely appalled.
Lori Hervé uploaded the video to YouTube from her son's friend's iPod Sunday, hoping to raise awareness about what she deems excessive force.
It was wrong, and people need to know that this stuff goes on.
But the RCMP argues the stun technique was warranted. They were trying to arrest Richard Claybert at an out-of-control party and had been unable to subdue him with pepper spray and a baton.
I will describe him as an MMA fighter walking around the ring before a fight starts and trying to pump himself up by gritting his teeth, breathing heavy, flexing his arms, and clenching his fists as he was speaking with the members.
Due to his size, the RCMP district commander says the officers couldn't handcuff Claybert with just one set. And as they tried to secure 2 sets around his wrists, he continued to thrash. That's when one constable did this. Is that stun technique that he used appropriate in this circumstance? Would you have done the same thing?
Under the circumstances, I believe I would have.
Claybert has been advised by a lawyer not to speak about any details that happened that night at this community center, though family members close to him say he's recovering.
He's angry, of course, but he said that the bruises are getting worse, but he's alive.
Meantime, the constable involved is on administrative duties. An investigation into his use of force now underway. Reporting from Cold Lake, Laurel Clark, Global News.
Claybert is hearing impaired. The RCMP says officers weren't aware of that until after the incident. RCMP typically use a palm to administer the stun technique rather than a foot.
So they're just totally, absolutely full of it.
Oh, yes, you know.
The guy's laying on the ground, and he's handcuffed behind his back.
Yeah.
There's a guy on top of him, okay, and he's thrashing around. That's it.
Yeah. They're not learning their lesson very well, are they?
The childishness involved here, okay, and this is how childish they are. All they would have to do is, like you do with any kid who's having a temper tantrum, you hold them on the ground till they get tired.
After they pepper
That's
spray,
it.
they pepper
spray him, tase him. Okay? Yes, he's a tough guy. Yes, he could take it. You just got to wait until he gets tired or tie him up more.
Aren't cops supposed to be tough guys?
Yeah, well, donut run. But what we've seen, like in the Camilla Maguire case, they go straight for violence, and they never use their heads in these cases. We're talking about tough guys who are trying to control a situation to their degree of control, to what they believe their degree of control is necessary. And then their to characterize the guy as an MMA fighter who's stomping around getting himself warmed up when he's already being held on the ground.
Yeah. They were a fear to him, I guess.
They were a fear to him with his handcuffs behind his head. It's like that cop who shot the kid, or the guy who committed suicide in the backseat of a car with his handcuffs behind his head.
After he'd been searched twice.
So childish. At any rate, we're working on solutions for that. Why Average Minds created police brutality. Average Minds can solve it. On October 10th, we start, and we get ready for a 6-week run to get you informed and get people out. Time to get back up on that horse. You know, we're going radioactive right here. Radio Free Canada. We will be right back talking about the United Nations.
Well, I'm not uptight, not unattractive. Turn me on tonight, 'cause I'm a radioactive. Well, it's not a fight, and I'm not your captive. Turn me loose tonight, 'cause I'm a radioactive. Don't be distracted.
know it right here, radioactive, right here in the control room at Guerrilla Radio Design Studios. I am Darren Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
It's awesome being at work today because we've got so many awesome stories coming up talking about LIBOR. And if you haven't informed yourself of what's going on in the world of banking, LIBOR is where they lied to each other, and it's as simple as that.
I like to call it lie more.
Please lie more to me, okay? I know I'm beautiful and popular. Please lie to me some more. And that's, of course, we're going to talk about biological bungee jumping. Coming up, we've got a couple seminars coming up where we're going to get into the theater, we're going to get into the pub, and we're going to start talking about these things in person. So if you're interested in volunteering, getting up and talking, come and join us, because it's time to start the discussion about alternative government and whether or not you would vote to give cops a raise.
I would not.
I would not vote to give the cops a raise.
I think they should be paid on merit rather than, just normally.
Paid on getting results?
Yeah.
You mean actually arresting a pig farmer like 4 years before he was?
Yeah.
Not to bring up any uncomfortable facts. Coming up, we're going to be doing releasing Police Brutality 2012, 3,000 hits on our YouTube video, 16,000 hits on Radio Free Canada. It's not too bad for
That's
views.
not bad.
So we're doing good. And we're working the problem. Make sure you get informed and question what we're talking about, because we don't know everything.
Now, Herr Harper was in New York last week to not address the UN Council.
Yes.
But maybe there's a reason he didn't address the UN Council.
Yeah, the Decepticon did not step up to the podium.
He sent John Barrett instead, but we'll have that story later.
September. Kids are back to school, gossiping in the hallways, striking a pose for the yearbook. As the principal meets and greets them, pupils fill up the classroom.
Certainly the UN is a little bit like one of those general assemblies we used to have in high school.
Just with better uniforms. Here, attendance is not mandatory, and you can't be expelled. An attractive feature of this Ivy League school.
His Excellency Barack Obama, President of the United States of America.
There are the schoolyard bullies.
You'd like to think that all the nations of the world are equal, but it's the United States that pays 25% of the bill here. And the United States can decide, for example, if you happen to be from Iran, 40 of your diplomats can't come because we won't give you visas. So there is a bullying process that's going on here.
The mean kids may think they run the show.
They're the ones that are the most superficial as well. So we're always hearing these false promises and statements made, and a lot of rhetoric going on.
That's why a coalition of countries is holding the Iranian government accountable.
While the popular kids try to create outsiders, the bad guys are having none of it and fight right back.
The bad kids, Iran, Ahmadinejad, others, Chavez, those that always seem to make statements that embarrass others or that others walk out on.
The shy kids make up the bulk of this school, but go largely ignored. The General Assembly, the largest class, unlike the Security Council attended by the lucky 15, has no legal power. Still, everyone wants to be part of the cool crowd.
It's not a good time in the world right now to be a country that speaks its mind. That's too bad.
This may soon change.
As other countries, China, Russia, Brazil, Indonesia, other countries, Turkey, come to the fore, we're going to see some sort of a rejiggering going on over the next few years.
Some say this rejig has already begun.
Suddenly, the popular kids are revealed as being the jerks.
During his first speech at the UN, Obama was a cool kid who arrived stepping on a welcome mat. But lately, his classmates are beginning to smell a rat in the face of the U.S. as it becomes clear that the alleged bad kid is really just the class clown.
When you have the United States directly occupying two countries and militarily involved barely covertly in half a dozen others, and trying to gin up, revolution in Syria, and I mean, it's the Iran thing. It seems to be crossing a line.
Fights between classmates come and go, but the cheerleaders are always there rooting for their team.
CNN just replays constantly Obama's speech and is constantly, analyzing what he said, and they're ignoring what the other 192 countries' leaders are talking about.
And while the high school students aren't making the grades,
if these guys had to get together for, say, 9 months and just sit there and hash it out, and they weren't allowed to go home, until they worked stuff out, it would be you'd have a different outcome.
At least the kids are convinced they're the hottest thing around.
I brought my shades because I want to look cool.
Anastasia Churkina, RT, New York.
Oh my goodness, it's so bang on the money. I mean, these guys, that's what they're like. They're like high school kids. Well, you know, I'm Israel. I'm the United States. I get to do anything.
Yes.
You're just not cool anymore, man.
I think people aren't buying into the BS anymore.
And, you know, the UN does not get anything done, but she pointed it out the best. CNN, there's 192 other delegates.
Yeah.
Okay, same thing. CBC, you're a joke. CTV Global, that's a joke for media because where are the other 192 reps?
Well, you know, their opinion's not important.
No, because they're not warmongers, don't you know? You have to be a warmonger to get on the UN front stage.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
And the warmongering that was going on in the UN was amazing, but boy, they stuck their foot into it, okay?
Oh, yeah.
This, I mean... Okay, make
This
up your
speaks
own
for
mind.
itself,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war. One can combine other means of pressure with sanctions. I mentioned that explosion on August 17th. We could step up the pressure. I mean, look, people, Iranian submarines periodically go down. Someday one of them might not come up. Who would know why? We can do a variety of things if we wish to increase the pressure. I'm not advocating that, but I'm just suggesting that this is not a either-or proposition. Of, you know, it's just sanctions has to succeed or other things. We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians. We could get nastier at that.
So that was a Jewish group in Washington advocating false flag attacks to initiate a war with Iran.
Just saying we need someone to step up. Now, he names them off. Well, America didn't get in until Pearl Harbor, but remember, what was it? Eisenhower at the time cut off oil supplies to Japan, did all kinds of embargoes against Japan, forced their hand. Okay. We know the Gulf of Tonkin incident in the Vietnam War was a lie.
Yeah, I know.
Just flat out, straight out a lie. Okay. And we know that the Twin Towers was a lie. A false flag if I've ever seen one.
Oh, yes.
Okay, the whole, just look at our architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. We're talking about the most conservative, educated group of individuals saying the whole thing is BS.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got a Jewish guy saying, hey, we need something like that.
Because we want to get to a war with Iran.
Because Iran's not going to cause it.
I wonder who he's connected to. Boeing, Raytheon, BAE Systems, other arms manufacturers maybe?
You know, you do have to take a look at it. On the last show, we did put up a video that talked about who exactly benefits when there's a war. And, you know, they always say, well, Zionism. They're talking about the Jewish thing, okay? And they say, well, these are Jewish companies that profit from Jewish wars.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and I really want to get an intellectual debate on this because apparently we're not allowed to even debate it.
Oh,
okay?
no, you can't mention the word
be...
Israel and warmongering in the same sentence, otherwise you're an anti-Semite, don't you know?
Yeah, and I don't get that because it's just human rights, it's warfare, and it's obvious domineering over the entire planet. So why don't we open this debate? We have major news.
Oh, yes. They're so good at their job, you know.
I mean, come on. Why don't they have any morality to take both sides of this story?
Another thing nobody looks at is the banking cartel, where it's really Zionist driven. A lot of people, like in the Lehman gang and Merrill Lynch mob, they're all connected to Jewish bankers as well.
And it's amazing. We had all this, you know what? I had a list of a whole bunch of people that were bringing us these things. So coming up after this, I'm going to bring you a list on some of our contributors this week and what we've been covering on our Facebook wall while we've got time. But what's been happening in the news, okay, and with this Israeli thing is amazing. It's World War III. They're trying to drum themselves up into some kind of fury, and it's just not working because we're not buying it, and we don't want it. We can't afford it. And we should leave these people alone.
Yes, let them work out their own problems.
You know,
no, we have to step in and take care of things over in the Middle East. You know,
yeah, and then they'll get a democracy like we have, where we don't have a democracy at all. That's a good idea. Let's take switch gears just for a second here. Okay. Is that what this is? This is banking?
This is banking. This is what they're trying to do to alleviate things over in France.
Okay, so
the French officially unveiling a 75% super tax rate for the wealthy as part of the Eurozone country's plan to bring down its deficit. So which other countries have super high tax rates, and what are the implications here in the U.S., Robert Frank?
Yeah, well, you know, Francois Hollande brought bad news for the French rich today. This budget increases their tax rate. It'll go from 48% to a whopping, get this, 75% income tax rate. This would apply to people who make more than €1 million a year. And France now by far has the highest income tax in the world. If you look at this chart, you see France there at number 1. Second place is Aruba, followed by Sweden, 56%. Then the U.S. way down on the ranks at number 35, sort of in the middle of the whole list with its, again, 35% top tax rate in the U.S. Now, early estimates said this 75% tax rate would only affect around 30,000 taxpayers. But I've been on the phone with a lot of French tax lawyers this morning, and they said the number's far lower. Maybe only 2,000 to 3,000 people in France would actually pay this tax. The reason is that this tax really only applies to salary and ordinary incomes. It doesn't apply to capital gains, interest income, dividends, what we would call kind of passive investment income. The rates for passive income in France would largely remain unchanged. Now, the people most affected would be people like athletes, artists, maybe some doctors and lawyers, but most business people and executives, they make their money from stocks and dividends, so not much impact for them. Now, French lawyers tell me that they're not seeing a big panic here. The wealthy have been planning for this for months. But they do tell me that many young entrepreneurs and business people, they do want out. They're going to Belgium, Switzerland, Portugal, a lot of people to California. Imagine that, Tyler. California now seen as a low-tax state. Well, it is for the French. And here's the other issue. Will this give cover to the Democrats in Washington who want to raise taxes? Compared to 75%, 39.6% remains small.
All right, Robert, thank you very much. But of course, the critics would say, oh, you want to turn us into France, which is kind of the ultimate gotcha in political discourse.
Exactly. This will play on both sides.
Yeah. It'll be Robert, thank you very much.
Oh, man. Okay, so get on there, find out what their French taxes mean, the fact that they're not taxing capital gains, and it's kind of just another smokescreen so the rich can remain richer.
It only applies to salaries and normal income. Well, who gets paid $1 million euros a year as a part of their salary? Besides athletes, maybe doctors.
Okay.
People that work for a living.
Don't go there, man. Just don't go there. Checking out the French, too. Also, the French are looking at Monsanto. They're banning their corn because corn causes tumor, cancer, all kinds of problems within lab rats who are tested for more than 90 days. Get on truefoodfoundation.org. Take a look at France and your cornflakes, because chances are
that's right,
your cornflakes, we're going to start advising people.
I want my cornflakes back.
I want my cornflakes back. But, well, okay. Just before we take a really quick break here.
We're on financial foibles here.
Financial... We should have that song by Pink Floyd. Financial foibles moment just before we take the break right here. I think we got time for this. Yes, we're going to take a really quick one.
Okay.
Just LIBOR.
Britain's top financial regulator says unscrupulous bankers should face criminal prosecution if they ever try a repeat of the rate-fixing scandal which rocked the city earlier this year. LIBOR, the acronym stands for the London Interbank Offered Rate. It's the rate at which banks lend money to each other. It affects $300 trillion worth of financial contracts across the world, including your mortgage rate. In June, Barclays was fined £290 million for manipulating LIBOR during the banking crisis to try to make its financial position look more secure. That forced the resignation of Chief Executive Bob Diamond. Another 15 major banks also under investigation. The Financial Services Authority wants a complete overhaul, with the British Bankers Association losing the power to oversee and indeed set the LIBOR. An independent body would draw up a code of conduct and carry out regular audits, and it's recommending criminal prosecution for anyone found breaking the rules.
The system is broken and needs complete overhaul. The disturbing events that we have uncovered in the manipulation of LIBOR have severely tarnished confidence and our trust. It has torn the very fabric of our financial system. Today, we need to press the reset button, including criminal sanctions for those who abuse and manipulate the system.
Well, Sky City editor Mark Kleiman brought you bits of this story certainly a couple of days ago. On the LIBOR report joins us now. Mark, welcome to you. If it's not the British Bankers Association who set LIBOR, then who does governance fall to, do we think?
Well, that's going to be the subject, Colin, of an open tender process which will begin almost immediately. And there are any number of private sector providers of the infrastructure which may end up replacing the British Bankers Association. Bloomberg, for example, the financial data company, has expressed an interest in doing so. But there will also be a more robust sort of governance framework with the FSA taking sort of direct oversight of the LIBOR setting process. I mean, I think the reaction from the city this morning has been one that really shows that there's a broad pragmatism to what Mr. Wheatley has outlined today, that this 10-point plan for restoring the integrity of LIBOR is welcome and might actually do the trick, because this is, as he pointed out, a toxic brand at the moment. It's been tainted. And actually, I asked him in the press conference whether, given the publication of email transcripts showing that the British Bankers Association had asked the authorities to get involved sooner, whether or not the FSA itself should shoulder some of the blame for the crisis that we've seen.
With the benefit of hindsight, almost certainly yes. You know, the fact that these events were happening in 2008, there were some emails floating around and they've been published. With the benefit of hindsight, yes, you know, it would be nice to say we should have stepped in earlier. As everybody knows, that was a very, very difficult period. Everybody's attention was directed towards which bank might be the next failure.
Mark, do you think, paradoxically, some of those working on the trading floors might actually be pleased to realise now they've got really firm red lines to look at? Because hitherto, perhaps the problem has been that in some way fixing the LIBOR rate, well, it was immoral, it was unethical, but it wasn't strictly criminally illegal. It will be soon.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt there's anyone who worked on a trading floor in 2008 who didn't know that what they were doing was wrong, despite the fact that it wasn't strictly a criminal activity, Colin. I mean, I think in one sense, yes, it will be more helpful to have these clear red lines in place. But Mr. Wheatley did point out today that no matter how firm the regulatory regime is, there is always the possibility for collusion, particularly with a metric like LIBOR, which to some degree, no matter how much tighter the regulations are, will depend on the judgments of individual bank employees. And we're going to see over the next few months a number of other banks besides Barclays being fined a very large sum of money. And so it's in the bank's clearly best interests that they take much closer oversight of their employees who are involved in this process in future.
Mark, thanks very much indeed. Mark Kleiman.
So it's nice it's in the bank's self-interest.
It's nice that they say it straight out like that. I mean, I'm really impressed. LIBOR, of course, being the guys who lied when things were going wrong. Do your research. Get a hold of us. If you want to get in depth about these things, you can right at Radio Free Canada. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break right here because we have to. People got bills to pay. So do we. We'll be right back.
had a dream, boy, it was a good one. So she chased after her dream with much desire. But when she got too close to her dream burned up like paper and fire. Paper and fire, sticking up the ashtray. Paper and fire, smoking up the alleyways. Who's to say the way a man should spend his day? Smoke like paper and fire. He wanted love with no involvement, so he chased the wind. That's all the city life required. And the days of vanity went on forever. And he saw his days burn up like paper and fire. Paper and fire, singing up the ashtray. Paper and fire, smoking up the alleyways. Who's to say the way a man should spend his day? Smoke love like paper and fire.
So cool and slow right here, Radio Free Canada. Welcome to the revolution of consciousness and the winning team. Oh, man, we got news for you. Coming up, we're going to talk about iPhones and the way your iPhone can get shut down for no good reason whatsoever.
And we're also going to be talking about the way the U.S. is treating journalists, you know, the fifth estate, the real reign on government.
Yes, we've got things, stories that government or our local major media is too scared to cover because they're afraid. Well, they're afraid for various different reasons. We, however, are not.
I think they're afraid of the truth.
Yes. Welcome to the winning team, where we talk about Julian Assange. And we're talking about...
And the latest
he's the enemy of the state.
That reports in Fairfax newspapers that the U.S. military has officially designated Julian Assange and WikiLeaks as enemies of the United States through declassified U.S. Air Force counterintelligence documents. Now, in light of these reports, do you believe that this vindicates your decision to seek asylum in Ecuador? And what do you think this says of the statements made by the Australian and American governments regarding this issue?
Those documents are now in full on the WikiLeaks website, just released tonight. They formed part of the submission that we made to Ecuador. We had those documents for some months, and of course we're very concerned about them, but it was necessary to conduct, because of the sensitivities of some of the people involved in that investigation, to prevent their release until more recently. But yes, I mean, I encourage everyone to read those. I mean, it's a unusual position that I am in and that our organisation is in, and yes, it is difficult sometimes, but it is also completely absurd. I mean, these claims against us are absurd. For example, that the US military should designate me and or WikiLeaks as the enemy in its formal investigation which carries a death penalty offence into a person who was alleged to have come to my extradition hearing. And in the same document, it speaks about the victim being that of society, when there is no allegation that any documents have been released or published by us. So I think that goes to the to really a quite sort of absurdist neo-McCarthyist fervour that exists within some of these government departments in the US. I mean, I am hopeful that the White House over time is starting to shed that, but enormous wheels have been set in motion, as I described before, with over a dozen different US intelligence and investigative organisations churning through this, and it's a very difficult process to stop once it starts, even once everyone sees that it is completely absurd and counter to the values that the United States should be trying to present to the world.
And one of those values is protecting, whistleblowers and protecting the media in producing those facts.
Yeah, but it seems as a kind of a two-tiered system, If you protect big business or government, then you're a criminal, then you're a good guy. But if you expose them, you're a bad guy.
Yeah, and anything that's embarrassing, okay? And they talk about embarrassment, illogically, as saying this should be top secret just because it embarrasses us. Grow up, okay?
Yeah,
step up. Your Apple iPhone in the firing line for, if you're carrying it, they can shut it off. Now, they've got the ability to have batteries that you can't even turn the darn thing off.
So they can turn it on and record you wherever you are at any time they want to.
Yeah, turn it on, turn it off. They've got control of your iPhone. Weirdest thing I've ever seen, but make up your own mind. Check this out.
So I do want to talk more about this iPhone application now that would allow companies to shut down cell phone usage remotely by individuals who aren't following the rules. Now, we could be talking about gym locker rooms, classrooms, movie theaters, or on airplanes. I know at least one person who would have loved to have this function during a fundraiser a few months ago when he was caught on camera saying this.
There are 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government, who believe that they are victims, who believe that government has a responsibility to care for them, who believe that they're entitled to health care, to food, to housing, to you name it. But it's an entitlement, and the government should give it to them. And they will vote for this president no matter what.
Governor Romney's comments have gotten him into a little bit of hot water, both with opponents and supporters alike. Still, the fact that a speech given by a presidential nominee is recorded shouldn't really come of that much of a surprise, even at a private event. We live in a time where we videotape just about everything, whether our dog is doing something adorable or police officers are beating someone up in the back alley. It's the digital age, after all, and a freedom that we enjoy because technology allows us to capture what's actually happening, what's actually being said. But it might not always be this way. I want to tell you a little bit more about this patent awarded to Apple this week. It's titled Apparatus and Methods for Enforcement of Policies Upon a Wireless Device. Now, in it, there are details about why this policy enforcement capability is useful. It gives examples of the need to disable noise or light emanating from wireless devices, like at a movie theater, for preventing wireless devices from communicating with each other, such as in academic settings, and also for forcing certain electronic devices to enter into sleep mode when entering a sensitive area. Also in this patent, a reference to the use in, quote, government buildings. So whereas now you might be able to record what your elected officials are saying, well, that might change soon. We're going to be keeping our eyes on this story, but we did want to let you know, enjoy these freedoms to record and have control over your cell phone usage while you still have them.
And I mean, enjoy your free speech while you still have it.
Yes.
But that's crazy. The legislation going forward to talk about controlling your phone. Basically, control your phone. Turn it on, turn it off whenever they want. That's just the way it goes.
That's pretty creepy.
I mean, it is. I'm creeping. I'm like Vic Taves creepy, okay? Oh, by the way, Vic Taves got his 17-year-old babysitter pregnant. And we haven't mentioned that lately.
No, we haven't.
We're going to be right back. 2 minutes, Radio Free Canada. The revolution continues. Hang on. I want my Apple iPhone back. I want my cornflakes back. Damn it. yeah, music right there. Def Leppard just during the break. And we're just laughing in the background because, we're really not evil pirates. We're pirates are for sure. But, we're not evil. We're not like Harper evil.
I like to think we're just disseminators of information that needs to go to the people.
Yes. Things that, people like Phil are just scared to death of.
However, if you believe in those kinds of things, you may be a terrorist or a conspiracy theorist.
Finishing off on an awesome note right here. Are you a conspiracy theorist? Let's find out.
How do you know if you are a conspiracy theorist? Well, tonight we can tell you that you might be a conspiracy theorist if you're capable of critical thinking, if you distrust the mainstream media, if you think about WTC Building 7, if you think drones in America might not be for Al-Qaeda, if you think you have a right to protest, if you think there's essentially no important difference between Republicans and Democrats, if you think the Constitution itself is not a terrorist act, if you think the right to bear arms is not just for hunting, if you don't want a bunch of tyrannical thugs overriding you, if you think rich and powerful connected people should be held to the rule of law and go to jail if they commit crimes, i.e. JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, if you are aware just of the fact that Homeland Security bought 1.2 billion rounds of ammunition and are kind of concerned about it, if you think about the Federal Reserve or about Monsanto's GMO corn or a host of other issues, re-education camps, if you think at all, if you think at all, you just might be a conspiracy theorist. That's a public service announcement here at Infowars.com. We just want to try to realize the craziness we're involved in here today. And how dare you if you think you might be a terrorist too. I'm sure that's the next segment.
Yeah. I'm loving it. I might be a conspiracy theorist. We actually fulfilled one of those amazing lists on the internet. And, apparently we are conspiracy theorists because we're independent media. Now, that got listed on the FBI as being a conspiracy theorist if you are part of the independent media. And I don't get it. So we sit outside the box. I don't think that's it. Coming up, we're talking about it, demanding democracy. There's a reason why to demand democracy right here in Canada is because you're not voting on things. And locally, we're looking at millions of dollars being spent on parks, totally ignoring 1,500 homeless people, or 1% of the population. You know what? We got time enough. Just real quick grin just before the end, okay? Okay, just a quick grin.
Dog boy, did you hear?
Hear what, Mr. Dan?
We just took out Al-Qaeda's number 2.
Who?
2!
How's that, Mr. Dan?
Well, their second in command became first, so third became second.
So who's on first?
We're not talking about first, dog boy. We got second.
So nobody's second?
No, third's now second. There's never nobody.
There's always somebody?
Absolutely.
But you just said we took out second.
We did.
But somebody's still second?
Because third's now second.
Oh, how many seconds are there?
As many as it takes, dog boy.
So who's on first?
We're not talking about first, dog boy.
Wait, give me a second.
You see, dog boy, over the years, we've killed dozens of top guys.
Whoa, that's a whole lot of second guys.
Get off a second, dog boy. They're commanders, chiefs, operational leaders.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty top-heavy organization. Who's third and fourth?
I don't know, dog boy. We'll know once they're second.
But I thought second was taken out.
Dog boy, look. The kill list is working. You can't get around that. Second, third, fourth, or 40th.
What about bystanders?
Not on the list.
So they don't have to worry.
Unless they're standing by.
But they're not second, third, or even fifth.
Well, if they're that close, they're as good as militants, too.
So let's say you're third in command, Mr. Dan, and number 2 gets taken out. That means the bystanders become the new number 2?
No, dog boy. I become number 2. I'm number 2.
Oh, that's what I kind of thought.
Naturally, dog boy.
And that's the way we do it right here at Radio Free Canada. A reason to smile and keep the revolution going.
That's right.
People are waking up everywhere, and we're part of those portions of people. So we advise that you look at your iPhone and go, hey, who's writing the legislation that has that iPhone turn off?
Oh, you got to watch those apps, You never know what they're going to do to you.
We don't want you to end up being number 2, too. So make sure that you stay tuned. Question authority. Don't trust us. Check out our facts, check out our links, and check out our Facebook wall. Make sure you start your own radio station. Big shout out to our supporters out there in the internet world. I am Darren Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
This has been a production of Radio Free Canada. We now return you to your slightly naked and excellent day. Have yourself a good one. We'll see you on Friday. Awesome show coming up.